my mindset really was I had nothing to lose. Like the only thing I have to lose is maybe a little time and them saying no. Because again, I try not to get disappointed. So I don't get too disappointed if they say no. It's mostly just time that I lose. And that's not a big deal to me, especially if I'm going for what I want. That's just an investment to me.
Hello and welcome to the Pybites Podcast, where we talk about Python, career, and mindset. We're your hosts. I'm Julian Sequeira.
And I am Bob Beldebos. If you're looking to improve your Python, your career, and learn the mindset for success, this is the podcast for you. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Pybites Podcast, everyone. This is Julian. I'm here with another guest today, a special guest. I say it every time, CJ Stein. CJ, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me on. It's been a long time since I've talked to you, but I'm very excited to get back in touch.
I know it's through your latest achievements that we were like, man, we got to get CJ on the podcast. So for everyone, so thank you for being here, first of all, and everyone listening and watching at home or in the car, wherever you happen to be. The reason I have CJ on the podcast today is, as you know, we love to highlight inspiring stories and just stories of people who push through and show some persistence and determination and reach their goal, because we want to try and show you and those of you who might need that little push or that kick or that motivational hit that these things are possible, right? With a certain types of steps and things that happen along the way. So CJ recently has just landed his dream software developer job. He's excited, he's pumped, and there's a lot of stuff that happened along the way that we want to talk about and share. So I'm not going to steal the thunder, but just hang around, listen to this one. It's a great story, and CJ is just a cool bloke all around. So CJ, I'm going to hand it to you. Do you want to give a quick introduction, what you're about and where it all started?
Yeah, so my name is CJ Stein. I'm actually originally from Montana, believe it or not. It's a very desolate land. I got a degree in mechanical engineering, and I was in manufacturing for a long time, actually. And the most recent place I worked at, I was a quality engineer. And the whole time, about that time is around COVID, I joined Pybites. I decided I was going to take my software engineering to a new level. I wanted to get into a role, and I've been personally doing it like a little bit here and there and learning it and enjoying it. And I decided during COVID, I was like, I'm going to do something. And I joined the Pybites development mindset. And that was probably the best thing I ever did. That's when I met you and met Bob, and it was awesome. And I think at that time it was pretty early on. There was only a small handful of us. I think you guys had just kind of kicked that off.
Man, you were one of our first clients back in 2020. So yeah, I still remember those chats, man.
Yeah, I think when I joined, there was only like maybe 10 people or so. So
yeah, and the program's changed immensely since you were in it. You wouldn't recognize it. So
yeah,
you got the rough as guts experience, and you still liked it.
I got the what'd you guys call it? The minimum viable product version of it.
The MVP version.
Yeah, the MVP.
PDM. Exactly right.
So during that time, I was still doing, I was actually, my company had kind of transferred me to a different location. And that's really what triggered me to say, hey, I got to really start looking, because I didn't want to drive really far. Luckily for me, my company actually moved me back to a place closer. So I was still doing the quality engineering. But again, I still really wanted to get into software because I just really enjoyed it. And out of nowhere, my wife, knowing I wanted to get into this sort of thing, found a Facebook post from a local company that was like, hey, there's a software developer role. And I jumped on. I'm like, I might as well do this. I've never done a software developer interview. You guys helped me rewrite my resume. I quickly touched it back up and sent in my application. And I was surprised they actually offered me an interview. Which that was the first one that was like local. I actually did apply to a few like Django positions, remote ones here and there, but knowing those, they're probably full of applicants, and knowing my resume wasn't perfect, I didn't expect to get anything. But this one, they wanted somebody local. It really seemed like they were very happy to find someone, because I'm in a very small town. And so it was very exciting to be like, wow, this small town actually has a software developer role that I was able to jump on. And that was pretty cool. So they asked me for an interview. The interview, I went in, specifically on the job description, it said it was actually a React role with Node.js back end.
Mm-hmm.
And I went in and I was like, I don't know anything about this. And they were like, but I was trying to point out that I could learn. I know I can learn it. I've already done it with Python. I know that, Python and Django, they're something you can learn, and then the syntax might be a little different, but the logic and the complexity and everything that I know how to do in Python is there in Node and in React. I just have to figure out the right letters instead of to get it all to work.
Yep.
So I went to the interview, said that I don't know how to do anything, and they were like, "You're hired." No, they were like, oh, I went in and did a functional interview also and showed them I can look at the docs. I know how to read the docs and try to, figure my way through it. And they ended up hiring me, which was awesome. I've been there about a month now. The code base is like a legacy code base, and half of it is actually still on the C# backend that I'm supposed to be refactoring into the Node.js backend, which is also even harder to read. So I'm figured it out, but it's slow and it's been fun and challenging, but definitely a change of pace for me, and I'm enjoying every minute of it.
That's awesome, man. Is there any room for Python in the day job?
They did say that we have some like ETL jobs where we're taking data from some of the sensors we have across the plant, and it's putting into a database. So those are also in the part of the C#. So what they had before was a big giant C# like mega code base with all of this stuff in it. The back end, the front end, it was before, and all of these ETL jobs, and they want to transfer them into their own kind of separate entities. And the ETL jobs I can do with Python, they said, if I want to get to that. So that's one thing. I'm going to try to convince them we should go to Django, because I'm the only software developer. So I think once I get a little, business capital, I can say, hey, we should switch to this because I think it's better for this and that reason. If it makes sense, though, I gotta, being new to React and Node.js, it's easy to be like, oh, the one thing I know is the best thing, but I know that's not true. So I gotta make sure I know that what I'm saying is right. But right now, that's
cool.
Yeah,
that's a good mindset to have, right? I mean, you hear it all the time that software developers come into roles, they have their area of expertise, and then they just force that on everyone else. And, well, the previous person did it this way. Yeah, but this is the best way to do it. And then when they leave, the next person says the same thing. So it just leads to all these issues. But so I think that's really cool that you're looking at it through that lens. So look, there's a lot there that you mentioned, and I want to go back a little bit, right? So you finished PDM, and you still always dreamed of this kind of position, right? Local, and just with Python, but allowing you to become an actual software developer was the goal. So how did that evolve over the years? Because now we're talking quite a few years later, right? But what were you doing throughout those years? What were you building anything? What did the job hunt look like for you throughout that time?
Yeah, actually, with PDM, again, I don't know what it looks like. You mentioned it's changed completely, but when I was in there, we had a project that we were working on, the MVP. And I took mine, and I actually worked on it. I left it private for a while, but after a year or two of keeping on building it, I decided I was just going to release it as open source. So I at least could have something to point to and said, hey, look at all this stuff I've done and learned and made. Actually, on top of that, for the job that I was in, I was using Python to create, we were a manufacturing company. So in manufacturing, there's, it's called SPC or statistical process control. And what it does is you take measurements and everything from your parts, and you create, basically you look at the statistics of it, like all of the mean, the median, the standard deviation, and you're able to create what are called control charts. And so I was able to automate that with our measurement system, pulling it from the API and create charts automatically, which our company thought was really cool. Being able to do that was awesome, because then I had another thing I could point to and say, hey, look at this other thing that is kind of completely different than my Django app that I can do. And so it just kind of, I think it just helped show that, if you keep building, you keep learning, you have some cool things you can show for it, and some things that make you valuable, basically.
That's cool. So you kept building up those skills. It wasn't just through learning, it wasn't just through reading, but it was actually building some cool, impactful stuff. Yeah, that's really awesome. I actually didn't know that part that you were building that. So that's very, very cool.
Yeah, that was a fairly recent thing. The one thing I will say is, yeah, it's hard to
Mhm.
get out of that. We talked about a lot when I was in PDM, was getting out of the tutorial cycle. And
Mm,
to me, that's the biggest thing, was just building something that helps you or someone else. And so
yeah.
that's what I kind of took to heart. And now I even make just little scripts that make my life easier. But those are some bigger projects that were like, this is awesome. I can build this and somebody else really appreciates it. And
Yeah.
actually,
No, that's
the
cool.
other biggest thing was making it so that other people can use it too. That was another thing that
Mm.
was a big barrier for me. That was like trying to make it so I can share it with people and they can use it.
Yeah, making it scalable to that extent that it's now everyone almost has a unique instance or profile that makes it their own. That adds a whole level of complexity. But it's cool that
Yeah.
you did that and figured it out. So how did so okay, so there's the learning piece, right? You were constantly building, staying fresh, creating stuff. How did that influence the job search? Because you said your partner found this specific role, but you were also applying along the way. So there would have been, obviously, you mentioned there were roles you applied for that you didn't land. So how did you handle all of that? How did this learning influence applying and so on?
I think the main thing for me was I try not to let myself down, because I know that it's, those decisions when I apply to something aren't really my decisions. They're kind of out of my control at that point. So I try not to I've kind of been like leaning into stoicism, where it's like, you can't control everything and you shouldn't worry too much about the things you can't control. And so that's where I've been, I'll apply, I'll see something and I'll do my best, apply it, but that's all I can do. So I have to just, either hope and not get my hopes up too high, but hope and don't expect anything, because that's, that just sets you up for disappointment. So yeah, I wouldn't hope too much. I would try my hardest to get it, but then I would, wouldn't be too upset if I didn't, because I knew I was kind of stretching in a sense. So I knew I would be a hard sell, and I knew I'd like sell myself.
Mm.
But in the end, it was like, eventually it worked out in a way that probably was better than getting the role getting a remote role and not being able to be around people and not being local in my community.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I mean, look, it's always in hindsight that we have these conversations and then people look back on the years of effort and they go, well, yeah, look, every single hurdle, every disappointment, every frustration, every declination was just a stepping stone to get me to where I am today, right? Because one declination may result in you learning something new, right? You may go, well, you know what? I was declined because of this, so I need to pick up this skill. And had you not been declined, you wouldn't have picked up that extra skill, or in some cases, realized what was meaningful to you, right? So for you, like you just said, it was meaningful to you to have that in-person connection, be close to home. And now because you were patient, persistent, you got there, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, the one thing I will mention is the job I had before. It's like I didn't hate it or anything, so that really helps when I was okay with where I was at, and of course I wanted more and just wanted to strive for more and do something better. But at least I wasn't like desperate, and that helped me too. Was just to know, if I don't get this, not a big deal. I'll just keep trying and keep doing what I'm doing.
But I will argue that for a second. That doesn't mean it's easy to fall into procrastination and just not chase the goal.
It does, yeah.
Because if you don't have the pain going, oh man, I hate this place. I'm not saying you need that, but that's definitely a great motivator to get in there and do 5 days a week of job hunting, right? So there is something to say about your character that you kept going, even though you were pretty happy in what you were doing right before that. So that's pretty cool. I'm happy to hear that you kept that persistence up. So how active were you in looking for roles then? Because you were happy. Obviously, this wasn't a 9 to 5 job hunt every day like some people should be doing if they're out of roles. But what was it looking like for you?
For me, it was probably I'd probably say I was looking like once a month. I'd just go see what were on like the job boards. And then I'd probably apply to one every other month or so just to see, how it went or everything. But it wasn't super active. Yeah, until I found the one that was local.
That's okay. I mean, everyone's different, right, with their needs. So I think it's a nice balance to the usual story that we hear and talk about where people are applying, again, 5 days a week, making the application process a full-time job. So it's nice to hear that, yeah, even if you're casual about it, again, just being persistent and consistent will help you get there. I do want to go back to, you were talking about stoicism, and we're pretty big on that in Pybites, right? We even had, before we moved across to Circle, in the Circle community, I remember we used to use Slack, and we actually had a Slack bot sharing the Daily Stoic.
Oh yeah, I was going to mention, that's like a book I've been getting back into, and I was trying to remember if that was from you guys or not that got us into it, but yeah, I've actually been getting back into that every day because I have the book, so I read it, every day.
That's
the
cool,
daily
man.
one, the Daily Stoic.
I should do that. It's on, the problem is it's on my Kindle, so it's easy to not physically see it there on my bookshelf. So but I should read it again. I used to love it. And they're, with all the Marcus Aurelius quotes and stuff in there, you can't remember anything. Yeah, they're all written in such
Yep.
obscure old English. It'll be like reading it all over again. So I'll definitely pick that up after this, throw it on the book right next to my bed, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the things I want to talk about here is that you wanted a software developer role, and when you looked at the job description of the role that you currently have, and you saw that you don't tick the box for everything on there, but you have this kind of, I knocked my microphone, but you have this adjacent kind of skill set that can be applied to it, but it isn't explicitly what's on that job ad. And I think everyone knows where I'm going with this, right? What made you go, I'm still going to go for it? And what gave you the confidence to kind of say, I don't, like you even said in the interview, I don't have these skills, but here I am anyway. So what went through your mind with that?
I'd say probably two things. I really like to learn, and I think people can get that out of me. They know that when they run into me. And two, it's like, my mindset really was I had nothing to lose. Like, the only thing I have to lose is maybe a little time and them saying no. Because again, I try not to get disappointed. So I don't get too disappointed if they say no. It's mostly just time that I lose. And that's not a big deal to me, especially if I'm going for what I want. That's just an investment to me. And so, to try to check all those boxes is hard. And that was like the things I would do would look at the job descriptions that I was applying for and be like, well, they require these things. There's usually a section that's like, we require these things and we prefer these things. And so I try to aim for, trying to show on my resume that I have those things. And if I don't have it on my resume, figuring out how I can get to a point where I do understand those and get them. So then I do check the boxes, even though I don't have typical, software developer background or schooling or whatever you want to call it.
That's cool because it shows that being able to talk over your skill set and your projects, even being able to talk to it, being able to explain your decisions, it does show a language agnostic skill set, so it doesn't matter if the code you're talking over is Python or React or whatever. Being able to talk about why you chose those things and show, as you said, that you can read the documentation and make heads and tails of these concepts, because looping is looping, functions are functions, that kind of stuff is the same everywhere you go, right? So did that give you the knowing that you could do that, did you feel confident in the interview as you talked about that?
I did, yeah. And like I said, I love learning. So it's like, and I think at least companies around here seem to be more wanting to hire people that can learn versus people that are set in their ways. So I don't know if that was an influence on, why they hired me, but knowing that I could learn, and like you said, I can learn because the logic is the same. It's just the letters that are on the bits that are different. So that's
cool. I like that. So the other piece of this is that the company itself, forgive me, what do they do? The company that you're now working for?
They process milk into cheese.
That's That's awesome. So
Yeah.
going through, for those of you not watching, I'm having a bit of a coughing fit off microphone. I think I inhaled some coffee the wrong way. So, okay, so that is not your typical IT tech company, right? So something that comes to mind to me uh, for this job hunt and for the people out there listening and in the industry, there are developer roles everywhere. Just, set your expectations straight. Stop assuming that the only companies you can get jobs at are FANG companies, that they're, the biggest tech startups on the planet. It's just not true. There are developer jobs in the back end of retail stores, of retail chains, whatever you want to call them, of, as you said, turning milk into cheese, so manufacturing, farm agriculture, you name it, right? There are jobs everywhere, and you just have to be open to looking for them and finding them. Some of the best, for example, network engineers and developers I know work for companies you wouldn't even have heard of or thought of, subsidiaries of larger companies, or again, retail chains and things like that. So to me, this is one of those lessons and reminders that you don't have to be looking at just Amazon, Microsoft, Oracle, Google, all of them. You don't have to just be looking at them for your jobs. It's like going to page 6 of the Google search results, right? You want to find, even the obscure companies have roles, and they're hungry for talented people who are hungry to learn and grow with them, as opposed to coming in and knowing everything. And you just have to find them, right? So your patience and persistence paid off, and that suddenly this role, which definitely wasn't available when you started your journey here with Python and software development. It wasn't there, but you kept learning, so you were ready for it when it was there.
Yeah, really it was exciting. It was weird to be like, go to this milk company and be like, hey, you're looking for a job. I was in manufacturing before, and I think I can transfer some of those skills as well as my software developer skills. So yeah, it was a weird journey for sure.
And when you showed me the office building on Google Maps, it's not like some corporate hub center with 20 stories on the building. It doesn't
it's a
matter.
big yellow building with a bunch of silos for milk.
I love it, man. It's cool. And I hope this is like not a wake up call, but just a reminder for people that, again, anything can happen at any time. And it's about not giving up, taking the opportunities, having the confidence to apply and try, and getting out of that imposter syndrome of, I don't check every box on that job description. I think that's the biggest pitfall that people find themselves in. So I don't tick every box, so I'm not even going to bother applying. And you just never know, right? You might be the person with the attitude and the confidence and the willingness to learn, in your case, that just stomps the competition. And, again, people shotgun apply to thousands of roles at a time using software and whatever else. So half of the applications that are coming in are probably just bogus anyway. So you just got to get in there and back yourself. So the other thing you mentioned, I just took a note of it, was you mentioned you have hope, but you set your expectations that you likely won't get it. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, I do that in life a lot, as bad as that sounds. But yeah, especially with this, is like, to me, it's another, test where I'm going to learn something. So
yeah,
I'm more excited to learn something. Like I said, I like to learn. So it's like, if I don't get it, I at least hope I get feedback into, what was it that didn't get me it? You don't get that a lot, but sometimes you do, especially if you go to an interview. You can even self-evaluate yourself. Like, what could I have done better? What could be better about my resume? What do I need to learn to look better for my next, application or interview that I can put on my resume? So to me, it is more of an opportunity of learning. And I know, I don't expect to get it, because life would be too easy if it was like that.
That is a nice way of looking at it. It's different to me, man. When I look at this stuff, I'm like all in, hope in, visualize everything, put the energy out there that it's mine, I've got it. But then I think I'm also aware that in those times when I don't get it or things don't go the way that I wanted or thought, I'm not the kind of person who will beat myself up and wallow in disappointment, right? I'll sit there and be like, okay, well, what's next? All right, what didn't work? What did work? Let's move on to the next thing. So very similar. I appreciate that. So I guess the next question for me, I know we're getting close to the end of this time slot, but what is it when you for anyone that is applying for jobs right now, because it's a pretty tricky job industry out there, especially in the developer world and IT sector, and we all know that. But what is your advice? What is it that you would tell people who were in your shoes, right? Who were in your shoes from a month ago looking for jobs? What would you tell them?
I'd say that we probably, don't beat yourself up, and just keep trying. And yeah, I don't really know what to say to them because I got lucky.
Look,
yeah,
you got to create your own luck. There is, I will never let someone say, oh, I'm just lucky. No, because there was a mountain of things below that lucky break that led to you being able to do that. I'm gonna coach you on this, CJ. It's like 5 years ago. I was, no. You made your own luck, right? You clearly set expectations with people. I mean, look, I'll even say this. You have clearly communicated with your partner about your dream and what you're chasing, because she's the one who knew enough about what you're after to find that job and say, hey, this is exactly what you're after. And that may be a very localized in your same house version of networking, but it's the same concept as getting out there on your network and telling the people in your life around you, your professional contacts, here is what I'm after. Think of me when you see things and you hear things along the way. So you weren't lucky, buddy. You planted a lot of these seeds and you kept skilling up. But I appreciate it. Your advice is just don't give up, right? Just keep going.
And I'd say keep building. That's what I did between PDM and when I got the job. It's just building, because you practice. It's two things: you practice and you get something to show for it. You can show people it. And you have more evidence of why you're valuable to somebody.
And I just had a thought. That's with the building thing. So when you first started PDM and you were building your app, right? And then you also talked about in your job interview, you showed that you could read the docs, right? You could peruse documentation. These days, as we all know, AI is right there. It's kind of crazy to think that when we were doing this, there was no AI. There was no chat GPT. We didn't have that. So now that stuff exists, Bob and I, the podcast episode that'll come out before this one, which hasn't released just yet, we talk about AI and how, as developers, it can really lead to some illiteracy with being a software developer. So you obviously kept reading the docs and you kept learning and you kept looking through those, preparing for this job interview, even though you had Chat GPT or Copilot or whatever sitting right there ready to go. How did you, what led to that? What's the balance?
Well, one, I like to learn. So it's always, to me, it's always like I'm expanding my knowledge and getting new views of things. And like I said, I don't know React that much, and I don't know, Node.js that much, and I want to say, no, we don't want to use that because I don't know it. But at the same time, I want to learn it because if I don't know it, I can't be sure of what the right thing is. That's just a bad mindset to have, I think. So to me, I just like to learn, and that's why I want to learn it. And, AI, I can see where it'll be easy to be like, hey, I need this thing done. Just do it for me and get an answer and put that in, right? And you won't learn anything. And to me, I think you need to know why things happen and why they work. And that's why, to me, reading the docs and understanding helps, because that also shows then I can spend my time on thinking about the complexity of it, because I don't think AI is quite there yet of you have a big system. Sure, you can tell it to make me a function that does this, but thinking how all the functions work together is really where I think it's important to know, because you have to think like that.
I like that. That's really cool. So I recorded this episode with Bob 2 nights ago, and we talk about this exact same kind of thing, right? Like the AI will only tell you so much. It'll answer your explicit question. It doesn't understand some. I mean, you can give it huge prompts, but still, there is stuff that's missed. And more importantly, you're not learning, right? To learn from it, you have to tell it to teach you. And when it's just spitting out code, as opposed to you trawling through documents, reading each module or function or whatever method to go, what does what and what would work, and then experimenting and playing, that's where the real learning comes in, right?
Hmm.
So there is a balance to be had with that. Also, I like when, me personally, when I read the documentation, you get the full contents down the left. So while you are reading one specific piece that a Google search result gave you, you also see other headers for that library or whatever that
Yeah.
you're like, oh, it can do that too. Oh yeah, and you
Yeah.
check that.
Yeah.
And I with AI, I feel there's this laser focus, as you said, it doesn't know about everything else, or it doesn't tell you about everything else intrinsically. So yeah, anyway, it's
Yeah.
like I'd rather have a conversation with a person because they'll tell me all this experience as opposed to just learning from an AI, right? Where you
Yep.
get the hyper focus thing. So no, that's cool. I appreciate that. That's valuable insight, I think, for everyone is that, yeah, there is still a lot of value in reading the docs and doing things like the old manual way.
Yeah.
All right. So look, we're at the end. I think it's first of all, congratulations again on landing the gig, man. I know it's been a couple of years and the pressure wasn't there and everything that some people face, but
Hmm.
the journey was the same, man. You tried, you failed, you got back up, and you kept going. And as I constantly tell our clients and community, it's the people who just don't give up that are the ones that get the job, right?
Hmm.
The people who follow the same steps, networking, applying, chasing up, that sort of stuff. They're the ones who get the roles and the positions, and you just got to keep going. Doesn't matter how long it takes.
Yep.
So I think it's very cool and inspirational that you did that after all these years and landed the job, man. How long's the drive to get you to work now?
It's like 3 minutes now instead of my last job was 20 minutes, or else when I was at the other facility, it was like an hour. So
I remember,
I've,
yeah, I remember your commute used to be over an hour when you were in PDM.
yep.
So that's crazy, man. I love it. This is awesome. Okay, any advice for anyone? Any tips? Anything you want to share before we go? Anything else?
I don't think anything new that I haven't said. Just keep having fun and keep learning and keep building.
Cool. That was your chance to say sign up for PDM.
Oh yeah.
But
Well,
that's cool.
yeah.
Opportunity lost. Thank you,
Yeah.
CJ. Thank you for
Yeah.
nothing, buddy. Uh,
Yeah. Really talk to Bob instead.
yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, talk to Bob. Don't talk to
Yeah.
Julian. All right. That suits me fine. I didn't want to talk to you anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. No, look, it was wonderful to have you on the podcast. If people want to follow you and meet you, say hi, say congratulations, where can they find you other than our circle community?
Actually, that's about the only place I am. I don't really, maybe LinkedIn, I guess. I don't really go on social media like at all anymore. So believe it or
Okay.
not.
No,
Um,
I'm believing
it's,
that more and more these
yeah.
days.
Yeah, I guess LinkedIn, but yeah, I don't really.
Okay. Well, there you go, everyone. There's a reason to join our community. Again, we say it all
Yep.
the time, and come and say hi to CJ. There is a dedicated post in there that he shared this win of getting the jobs. Come and show him some love and say congratulations. He'd love to connect and network as well. Um, but yeah, and CJ, just quickly, so you said you started all of this journey in Montana, and where are you now?
Minnesota.
Minnesota. Okay,
Yep.
that's it. Love these names. They're all from
Yep.
TV for me. All right. Well, CJ, it's a pleasure chatting with you as always. Thank you for joining me. Any departing words?
No, thanks for joining me, or thanks for having me on here. It's been so much fun, and it's been a while since we've talked, but I'm glad we got to catch up again. Hope we can
No,
keep it up.
man. Definitely. Well, we got the community now, so we can definitely
Yep.
do it through that. But I appreciate you joining, sharing some wisdom and your story, and hopefully everyone listening and watching, there's been some inspiration in there for you, some motivation. That's why we do it. And please, come check us out. Look at the community. The links are all below. Check out all the links. I think there should be about 10 links for you to click on and look at in the show notes about our coaching, about everything like that. We'd love to have you again. Traditional learning methods, reading books, watching videos, using AI, there will be a limit that you'll reach you'll hit the roof and you'll eventually go, I need someone to help me hit that next stage. And that's what Pybites is for with our coaching. So thank you, CJ. Everyone, thank you for joining. We will catch up next week. Bye. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into the Pybites podcast. I really hope you enjoyed it. A quick message from me and Bob before you go. To get the most out of your experience with Pybites, including learning more Python, engaging with other developers, learning about our guests, discussing these podcast episodes, and much, much more, please join our community at pybites.circle.so. The link is on the screen if you're watching this on YouTube, and it's in the show notes for everyone else. When you join, make sure you introduce yourself, engage with myself and Bob, and the many other developers in the community. It's one of the greatest things you can do to expand your knowledge and reach and network as a Python developer. We'll see you in the next episode, and we will see you in the community.